here, so I don't want to rush it. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, to our fourth and final mindfulness session. My name, this is going to be a very brief repeat because I feel like all of you pretty much know Carol Hyman and Marie Lindbergh. Some of you, I am a familiar face, but it's like, what is that name? Okay, so I am Adele West Fisher. I am the coordinator of library services here, and we've been very fortunate to have both Carol and Reeve here to lead us in this wonderful mindfulness workshop. Carol and Reeve really need little or no introduction. Has everybody pretty much come to previous mindfulness?
Anybody here for the first time tonight to this program? Okay.
Yeah, or like has never been to our previous ones. Because Carol is the executive director of the Applied Mindfulness Training. She is a writer, teacher, and consultant. And then, of course, we have Marie Lindbergh, and she is a children's author, a novelist, poet, just all around community person who is also a docent here at the Athenaeum. And Carol and Reeve have partnered up to kind of bring us some of these wonderful mindfulness workshops. So without further ado, I'm just going to turn it over to Carol, and I think we're going to have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Adele.
Thanks, Adele.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome for the first time. And Maddie, this may be your first time here, but we certainly have explored mindfulness before, yes. So just so I know, I'm sorry that I don't know your name, but
my name is Elise.
Eileen?
Elise, E-L-I-S-E.
Elise, have you ever done mindfulness practice?
I wouldn't say I've done it, but I know about it.
Okay.
Quite a bit about it.
Okay, good. It affects how much I always touch back because it never hurts any of us who have done it however many times to kind of repeat the instructions, but I like to know if there are new people how much exposure you've had. I'm kind of stunned these days by how much mindfulness has entered the mainstream. It's just really remarkable. And I had one of those, oh my God, experiences earlier today. I was reading today's today or yesterday's Wall Street Journal, and it turns out that the manufacturer of the food conglomerate manufacturer of a lot of famous snack foods that you would have heard of. I don't think it's goldfish, but it's like, Nilla wafers and a whole slew of chips and cookies. They are doing something now with their employees, and then they're going to roll it out to the public. And what it says, or what the point of this project they're doing is, I think, recognizing that people are getting interested in being healthier and that snack foods don't necessarily fall in most people's conceptual category of what's healthy. They have decided to enlist mindfulness so that they say by the year 2021, every one of their packages of snack foods are going to have snack mindfully on them. So they are rolling out this program with their employees, and they're bringing them in and they're putting like a cookie in front of them or cracker in front of them, and they're giving them some sort of simple, basic meditation instruction, and then they're saying, now pick up the cookie, take a bite of it, just one bite, now put it down, now chew mindfully. And does it work for Oreos? It probably depends on whether you open it up and take the filling out first. I was just kind of Stunned, yeah, stunned is a good word. The benefits of mindfulness, obviously, if I didn't know and hadn't experienced and didn't believe totally in the benefits of mindfulness, I would not be doing what I'm doing here. But the idea that mindfulness can be used to sell products is kind of contrary to the basic quality of spacious, the ability to discriminate that comes from learning how your mind works, that enables you to choose what you want to do. And it's true, you might choose to keep a package of Oreos in your cabinet and every once in a while go have an Oreo and really experience it and enjoy it and appreciate it. And if you do that, that's wonderful. But somehow I suspect that that's not the idea that this food conglomerate has in mind. So that's a little bit of a digression, but it's kind of, tonight's topic is communication, mindful communication. And I think one of the things that made me think of is, so maybe we could start with a little bit of discussion. I'm really interested in what people see as what are the hallmarks of good communication, and what are the obstacles to good communication? So maybe we could just start with a little discussion about that, because I think that would be useful in terms of looking at how mindfulness is most beneficial with regard to communication. Anybody want to share? Say.
Communication is two ways, so that means not only is a person talking, but there's a person actively listening.
A person actively listening, yes.
Ability to listen.
Speak up, Reed.
The ability to listen.
The ability to listen, right.
That's what I thought. You said, the hallmarks is listening, but sometimes the roadblock is listening, is being able to listen.
Yep.
So one of the things that we could explore is how mindfulness makes it possible to listen more deeply, more fully, more completely. What else? What else is a hallmark of good communication, or what do you see as an obstacle to good communication?
Well, the attitude one brings to the conversation, whether there are fixed frameworks that are going to block new ideas, or whether there is an ability to accept what's coming in and try to take it from where it's coming from, rather than through our frameworks.
Absolutely. So the fixed ideas that one brings to a conversation or opportunity for communication, fixed ideas will limit the extent to which free communication can occur. And mindfulness, we'll talk a little bit more about this, but mindfulness clearly enables us to begin to explore our own fixed ideas. It's never a problem to see the other person's fixed ideas, right? It's really easy. We can see, I'm never going to be able to talk to this person because they already have their mind made up about something. But I don't have my mind made up. I'm just right. I mean, that is the way our minds work, right? Everybody recognizes that. It's really hard, actually, to get beyond that for ourselves, and that's what mindfulness practice can help us to do. Again, I'll get into how it does that a little bit more later. Anything else come to mind about communication?
First of mind, I'm thinking about how we have the tendency always of waiting for this person to finish so that you can say what it is.
The tendency to jump the gun, to be ready to already respond before you've actually heard what's being said to you. Yes, absolutely. Big obstacle. Yeah. Adele?
That was what I was going to say. Sometimes you're already thinking about what the point you want to make, and you're not really listening to what that person. Just
raises a really interesting issue, which, again, I keep saying we'll explore all this later, so if I forget anything that intrigues you, feel free to remind me later. But that raises the interesting question of what do we do when we're trying to communicate and we aren't on the same wavelength? Because that does happen, whether it's between a parent and a teenager, or between two people on different parts of the political spectrum, or whatever it might be. Sometimes we really need to communicate with people with whom we are not on the same wavelength. So how mindfulness might help us to be able to do that is something we could look at. Anything else? Anybody else?
To kind of build on that, it might be not that we're on different wavelengths, but the clarity of what we are. Oftentimes, you think you're very clear in what you're saying, and the person's misinterpreting according to what you're thinking. You're not
Right.
clear enough in what you're trying to say.
Right, which ties in with the idea about fixed ideas, because oftentimes what causes that miscommunication is that someone already thinks they know what you're going to say, and so they don't actually hear what you do say because they're sure they know where you're coming from. Or it could be you who is sure you know where someone else is coming from, and so you don't really hear what's being said. Anything else that comes to anyone's mind?
This is like on a totally different plane, but for me, it's really important. I don't always hear what everybody's saying. So there is part of me.
You're talking about actual physical not hearing. Yeah.
And then there's the fact that there are ways of speaking that are more clear.
Yes.
Just physically.
Yes. Right.
Not that the ideas are per se,
I do know what you're talking about. I was married for many years to a man who was hard of hearing, and I could really tell, when he was able to hear and when he wasn't. He was pretty good with me. We had gotten to where we could, communicate, and I spoke in a way he would hear, and he would say, I never have any problem when it's just the two of us. But if we would be in a group like this, he would have a hard time hearing what was being said.
This is why you do it so well. You've had years. No, I am not joking.
No, it's true.
You learn how
To articulate.
You can't demand that from everybody. I make up my own world. It's a very interesting world. I fill in the gaps. There are some words that I said,
There you go, Mary
but it
Liz.
doesn't work.
Yeah. Well,
Eventually it breaks down.
yeah, sometimes it'll get you in trouble making up your own world.
But I mean that seriously. That's why I have no trouble whatsoever coming to this class and knowing I'm going to hear everything that you say.
Well, I have had years of experience with teaching in a situation where there was no microphone and there might be 50 or 100 people. And so I've learned to project as well, which I think probably helps. That and being married to a man who couldn't hear very well. There's another level of this that I'm interested in that we haven't quite gotten to, and it's sort of a lot of what we were talking about is on the interpersonal level. What Mary Liz just talked about is actually on the personal level. If you have difficulty hearing things with your physical equipment, that's going to affect communication. So that's kind of a slightly more material world level. There's a deeper level on which communication can occur, and if we are skillful, that level allows us a great deal more agency in the world, a great deal more ability to affect our environment and the people around us. And that is that people often say what's on their mind, but what they say is not really what's on their mind. There's a deeper level on which we are being provoked to communication that we may not be able to articulate. And so we articulate what we can, and learning how to discern when a person is describing, for example, a frustration. something that is easy to talk about, like being stuck in traffic, let's say, and sometimes my daughter lives out in California, and she has a 45-minute commute to and from work, and so she will often put her phone on speakerphone, and that's a good time for us to talk to each other when she's driving in traffic. And I have been out there and spent enough time with her that I can say, I know the drive, I know the commute, and I can say, where are you on 37? And she'll tell me, and she will sometimes get really annoyed with the traffic, and I'll hear that, and other times she'll be very, oh my goodness, the equanimity she manifests. When I was out there with her driving, and I was ready to, there's a place where 3 lanes of traffic have to merge down to 1 to go across this causeway. So it always backs up there at rush hour. And there are always the people who get in the right-hand lane and keep going and going and going and going, and then try to slip in at the last minute in front of everybody who's been patiently waiting. And I'm one of those people that gets over in the lane and tries to sneak in. And my daughter, I was driving, and my daughter said to me, Mom, you know what? If everybody does that, it just adds to the aggression that there is here. And I was like, oh, daughter, thank you. You're right. But then sometimes she does that. And so I will say, well, what's going on? And often, as she complains about the traffic, if I probe a little more deeply, I will find out that something has happened at work. She's a veterinarian, and often she has to put down animals that mean a lot to their owners, and she's a very compassionate, sensitive person. And so frequently, if she's complaining about the traffic and I say, how was your day at work? Well, I had to put down 3 animals this afternoon. So it's like, that's a kind of easy example. It's often in our interpersonal interactions, it's often harder to tell what might be the underlying issue. But often what is going on when people are venting or ranting is that there's something deeper that's really bothering them. And then there's this thing that it's socially okay to complain about, and so we will. Or blame you. Somebody might project onto you that it's your fault that they're feeling this way or something, when really it has nothing to do with you. I remember my dear friend Reeve is so wise, and years ago when my daughter was still, this daughter who's now a vet, was still in high school, and she was giving me a very hard time, and I was feeling bereft, actually, really. I try so hard to be a good mom, and my daughter is like, I'm out of here. And I went over venting to Reeve about this, and Reeve said, you know what? They do that with the person they feel safe with.
This is true.
And yeah, and Reeve told me she had that same experience, and I realized that's actually true. That is what we do. We unload where we know we can, and so I think that level of communication, the ability to create enough space to dip below the surface and ask oneself, what's really going on here? What are the real issues going on here? Because especially if you're the target, if, as with a teenage girl and her mother, if you're the target, it's easy to get defensive and be reactive and come right back with, well, you did blah, 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 or, what do you... If you are able to actually open up and create the space to hear what's going on under the surface, you have the opportunity to be more skillful in dealing with that situation. Does that make sense? So I think communication, all these kinds of things are a part of communication. And in our, in our world altogether, in our private lives altogether, but I'm really noticing today somebody called me up and I said, how are you? And she said, well, I'm watching the Mueller reports. And I was like, well, I'm not. We are in the middle of an incredibly contentious time in this country. If you read your history, there have been many contentious times in this country, but right now this is ours to deal with. And we can't deal with it by just demonizing the people who don't agree with us. Communication is how we will go forward. And to me, that's the value of learning how mindfulness can enable us to work with our own minds so that we can more skillfully communicate with others, especially those with whom we do not agree. And I think there's an enormous amount of I think of it as like clubism, where people just want to talk to the people, oh, if he gets elected up for 4 more years, I think I'll leave okay, preaching to the choir over there. And then, on the other side, preaching to the choir as well. Some of us need to step across and be able to talk with people. Why is it? What is it that makes you think the way you do? What is it that makes you feel like this is the best way to go? And to do that without your own buttons getting pushed to the point that you come right back at the person with why they're wrong is a real challenge. And it's very, very important that some of us in this country rise to meet that challenge, because otherwise polarization only leads to more conflict, and we don't need more of that in this country, or anywhere for that matter. Okay, so I think let's start with the rest of this session with a little bit of meditation. I want to just give you a brief reminder for those of you who might want. This is such a simple meditation practice that we do. You take your posture, take your seat. This is not an endurance test. You would like, ideally, to sit up. If you got back problems and you need to lean back, do. But ideally, sit up and feel the space all the way around you. Upright and relaxed. Choose an object for your attention. We are going to use the breath. It's a reference point in the present. You can pay attention to the breath wherever you notice it the most. Some people like to follow the breath out into space. Some people like to feel the breath going in and out of the nostrils. Some people notice it in their chest or their abdomen. It doesn't really matter. It's a reference point in the present moment. And so you just want to anchor your attention on the breath. Attitude, maintain open curiosity about what you notice. No need to judge. So you will not keep your attention anchored on the breath. That's actually a very silly thing to say, because no one does that. Mind is always seeking an object. That's the nature of mind, to seek an object. And so your mind will come to the breath, and then suddenly you'll be off somewhere. And this happens to everybody. That's why we call this practice. So what you do is, whenever you notice that your attention has wandered, it says here, come back, gentle persistence. But in fact, whenever you notice that your attention has wandered, you're already back. It's the noticing. It's the noticing. The noticing is your connection with wakeful presence, which is the awareness that underlies all of the objects that mind seeks. So all the thoughts, all the sense perceptions, everything else occur on the ground of this wakeful presence, which is what we are learning how to connect with through mindfulness practice. One of the analogies that a lot of people find helpful is that wakeful presence is like the sky, and your sense perceptions and your thoughts and everything else, those are like the weather, the clouds, the changing stuff. But underneath all of that is the ability to actually notice, to pay attention. So, does that make sense? Anybody have any questions?
I have a question. Would anybody know if I turned this off?
The fan?
Oh, okay.
But if people don't.
Is anybody in here really hot?
We were there last time, and it's hard.
Yeah, okay, we can turn.
Turn that off.
Yeah, I don't think anybody,
I've got a breeze back behind me, so I'm just fine.
I could go over there.
no, is that better?
I think it's fine.
Yeah, I think that's fine. If I get hot, I'll take my jacket off. Okay. Okay, so we are going to sit for 10 minutes. So I just would like to invite you to relax and be inquisitive and come back to your breath every time you notice. How is that for people? Anybody have any questions, comments, or observations about practice?
I was reminded of an instruction from some past teacher of maintaining a hint of a smile.
Uh-huh.
It both sort of relaxes the whole face and also does something to the way one approaches that space.
Uh-huh. Maintaining a hint of a smile. Some kind of, feeling of relaxation and cheerfulness. A little bit of, this is a nice thing to do. Sometimes it's a grueling thing to do, but even when it's grueling, it's a nice thing to do for yourself. To just be there and be with yourself. Anybody else? Any other?
I noticed that it took me a while to stop thinking about what I'm going to say afterward.
Took you a while to stop thinking about what you were going to say afterwards. Okay, well, good. You came up with it. Did you have something?
It's just so relaxing to quiet your mind.
Yes.
I feel I live a fairly low-stress life now that I'm retired, but it's just a different level of
Yes.
feeling relaxed.
Yes. We don't often notice, that's one of the values of mindfulness practice. We don't often notice sort of the low level of ongoing commentary that our minds are just constantly revving a little bit. Now what? Now what? Now what? Or oh, that. I noticed today something, and I kept having this like nagging feeling, and I thought, what is it? And as I went back and traced what had happened over the previous hour, I realized, oh, there was this one little place where something that I was expecting to have happen didn't occur. And somehow that created a low level of anxiety that I was just kind of gnawing on a little bit. And once I recognized it, then I could look at it. Is there anything I want to or need to do about this right now? And then it lost its power to kind of keep me feeling unsettled. So I think that the more we train our minds, the more nuanced we get in our recognition of what's going on with us, so that we can actually discriminate between what's worth doing anything about and what we might just let go of. In some ways, meditation is the progressive act of letting go into space. I mean, that's, as you practice more and more and more, that's what happens. But sometimes letting go is not the appropriate thing to do in a particular situation. Sometimes a situation calls for action. As Mary Liz just used the example of if you're a mother and a young child is about to take off into the street and there is traffic coming, you don't want to let go at that moment. You want to act. You want to do something. So being able to tell the difference. On the other hand, if you're always anxious that something's going to happen to your child, then you're going to actually communicate anxiety to your child's basic state of being, which is not helpful. So learning how to discriminate what's called for, what's actually going to bring benefit in a situation. So I was thinking about what would bring benefit in a 2-hour session on communication. And with your permission, I have this, and Reeve, with your permission, because part of it involves the journaling, writing part. Do we have notebooks?
We do.
We do. We have things so we can write. If you didn't bring anything with you, we've got something you can share. So what I wanted to do tonight, which I think is useful in a number of ways, and we'll explore those after we've done it, is we'll break into, conveniently there are, Adele, can you stay with us for this exercise?
Sure.
Okay, then conveniently there are 9, so we're going to be in 3 groups of 3. And what we're going to do is I'm going to time you. I want everybody to think about a situation. There are 2 elements to this. One is, it needs to be a situation in which you have found communication to be a challenge. It also needs to be a situation that you are not, that you are willing to talk about. So don't pick something so private and tender that you wouldn't be willing to talk with the people in your group. So we're going to do, the triad has 3 parts. There's a talker, a listener, and a witness. That's what we're going to do. So we're going to have, I'm going to time 3 different sequences of timing, and in one you'll be the talker, in one you'll be the listener, and in one you'll be the witness. And I will give you, each person will have 3 minutes to talk. And if you are the talker, you just say whatever you want to say about this situation of communication that you found challenging. It could have to do with the subject matter, the person, whatever it is. Some situation, and I'll give you a minute after I finish explaining all this, so don't start right now thinking, oh, what am I going to talk about? But you're going to just have 3 minutes to simply say, here's the situation, here's why it was difficult for me, and if you feel like saying, here's how I dealt with it, you can say that, or here are the things I've thought about for how to deal with it, but I don't know what to do. So whatever you feel like saying about it. If you are the listener, you are going to listen, unlike last time where we tried to listen without any kind of feedback.
Well, that was hard.
That was hard. This time, the witness should try to listen without engaging either the talker or the listener. But the listener can nod, listen. If you need to ask a question, you can do that. But at the end of that 3 minutes, I'll ring the bell, and then we'll take a pause. We'll take a pause in between each thing, settle, and then for 1 minute, the listener will recap what you've heard. So this is an exercise in really listening. And if you've heard something and you feel like there was something more there maybe that you didn't get to, you can say that you felt that. You can trust your inner experience of listening to that person. Any questions about either of those?
Okay, so is the listener, the talker,
And the witness. I haven't gotten to the witness yet. Yeah. So the talker is going to talk about whatever situation of communication, challenging communication. The listener is going to listen, ask questions if you feel the need to, and then at the end you'll have 1 minute to recap what you heard. What I heard you saying was, and try to cover it completely. Try to really listen and cover what the person has said. And then the witness will have a minute. We'll take another pause, and then the witness will have a minute to say whatever you observed about the interaction. I saw you really trying to bring her out about blah, 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 or whatever it is. Or I noticed that you didn't hear that he said this. Whatever you notice as the witness, you will share that. Clear? So by being able to be in all three positions, we are in everyday life in one of those positions whenever communication is going on. We're either talking, listening, or observing. So this is a kind of, these are contrived, these kinds of exercises, but they give us an opportunity to see our habitual patterns, to see how we engage or don't engage with others as we're attempting to communicate. As Reeves said last time when we were working with relationships and we were in pairs and the listener was supposed to just listen and not respond and not react. And everybody pretty much noticed how hard that was to do, that we are actually, I think we're hardwired as well as conditioned to manifest empathy, to mirror neurons, to reflect our engagement with the other person. So in this exercise, that is what we're doing. We're engaging. So one thing I want to, before we do this, and then I'll give you a minute to think about it. We'll get into our little triads, and then I'll give you a minute to think about it. And then I'll start timing the first group.
Carol, will we self-select as to who's which?
Yes, you can self-select as to who's which.
Which? I think I should be.
I got this. Where's the triangle?
I'm not going to talk about you, Garrett. Shucks.
So you want to move? Do you want to
I
swap
need to
around?
go.
I want to,
Is it this group where you don't know anybody?
okay. Before,
I barely know say. No.
That's good.
I'd be glad to come over.
That's good, because the problem would be staying in and out. That's okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think we both agree.
Okay.
All right, so, yeah, Adele's coming back. And you three ladies are okay over here? Okay. I want to say something I want to just say something here for a minute before we start. We'll wait for Adele to get back before we start. But deconstructing our patterns, this was from a previous class, but I want to, as you are sitting there either talking, listening, or observing, I want you to pay attention to your body sensations, your emotions, and your thoughts, because that is all for most of us, most of the time, it's all jumbled up. It's just our experience, who we are. But it is possible to actually begin to tease those things apart and notice, what am I feeling in my body? You might notice when it's your turn to speak, a fluttery sensation of nervousness or something, or if something is said that causes you to have a reaction, you might notice an emotional reaction or a thought, your thought process. Oh, I want to remember to say that when it's my turn to speak, whatever. I just want to invite you, because these bodily sensations and emotions, we refer to them as feelings, and they bring us a lot of information that is not necessarily accessible to our rational, conceptual mind. But our conceptual mind helps us make sense so that we can articulate to one another. Communication depends, there's communication on a lot of different levels, and some communication is nonverbal. But the kind of communication we're going to be doing here, it depends on our ability to actually use our words. My daughter's son is going to be 2 next month, and he is just starting to use words, and he doesn't always realize that you need all the syllables of the word in order for it to be understood. And he will get so frustrated because he thinks he's saying it perfectly well, and nobody understands what he's talking about. That's a kind of metaphor for actually what happens to all of us a lot of the times. We think we are being completely clear And that's where an exercise like this can be very valuable, because we think we're being clear about what we're saying, and yet the other person may not understand. And so if you're the listener and you don't understand, ask the question, what is going on? What are you talking about? Okay? All right. So, any questions before we start?
Does communication have to be verbal communication?
No, absolutely not. It does not. And feel free when you are especially if you're the witness or the listener, well, in whatever position you're in, but especially if you're the witness, you may be in a position, as the listener, your task is to be able to repeat back what you've heard. So you may be focused on that. But the witness may actually notice nonverbal things more easily, because you're not focused on, oh, I'm going to have to repeat all of this back. So notice what you notice. I mean, there's no right or wrong, no good or bad way to do this. It's just an exercise of exploration of communication.
And this is about a communications issue.
Yes. So now we're going to take a minute. I'm going to ring the bell. I'm going to give you a minute to settle and think of what you want to talk about, whatever it might be. And has everybody, each group, have you decided who's going to speak first? Okay. Okay. So let's do it this way. Let's do it this way. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So 1 will speak first, 2 will be the listener, and 3 will be the witness, and then we'll just rotate. Okay? Yes. Okay, so now we're going to take a minute, settle.
Have that light coming right in.
It wasn't.
Sorry.
Oh, you okay?
Sorry.
Okay. So we'll take a minute to settle, and then bring to mind what you want to talk about, and then number 1, you will have 3 minutes. No, wait. Taking a minute to settle first. All right. Thank you. Let's come back into the circle. Now we're going to...
I thought that was a great idea.
How many people would my shoes aren't comfortable with the floor.
This carpet's pretty cushy. I like it.
Is that okay? Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to do a contemplation exercise and a mindful journaling exercise. And then after we have completed that, I'm going to ask Reeve to lead a discussion about what we've done. Okay? Okay, so the contemplation, so first of all, anybody that doesn't have anything to write with and write on, please let us know right now, because Reeve has pads and pens.
Over here, I've got.
She's looking for stuff, I think.
Sure, I didn't do the exercise, so I may not have much to write, but I'll take something in case some thoughts come to mind.
Thoughts may come to mind.
You never know. So we're going to do contemplation practice is an extension of mindfulness practice that involves engaging our conceptual minds in order to connect with both the greatest rational understanding we can have of a situation, whatever it is, but also to be able to tap into the deeper, more intuitive insights that we might have. Contemplation practice is a way of inviting insight or intuition to arise. And so these are the steps of it. First, we clear a space with mindfulness. I will lead us through all of these. Then, bring to mind question or issue. And what we are going to bring to mind now is this exercise that we just did. We're going to invite insight about this exercise to arise. So you may find a great deal arising. You may find not much arising. You may find a lot of thoughts or insights or feelings around being the speaker and not much about being the listener, or you may find a lot about being the witness. Whatever comes to you about this experience, it's a very rich experience because you had all three parts. And so as you contemplate, okay, I'm going to structure this just a little bit, but I want you to feel free to ignore me if you want to. Normally, the way we do this is, so we bring to mind a question or issue, be patient, open curiosity, set aside the first thought or answer, see if you can explore deeper and further, and then repeat. So often you'll have the first thought and you'll say, oh, well, I found it, as we did last time with this where you weren't supposed to react to people, I found it very uncomfortable. But then if you go a little deeper and say, well, what's underneath that? Sometimes you will surprise yourself with what arises. So I'm going to divide it into what was it like to be the speaker, what was it like to be the listener, and what was it like to be the witness, whatever insights you might have. And I'll lead you through these steps with each of them. But if you find that I'm moving on and you're still writing things about being the listener, for example, feel free to do that. Don't feel like you have to cut off, because whatever insight arises for you is going to be what's valuable for you, not some kind of track that I try to keep us all on. Does that make sense? Okay, so keep your, I'm going to ask you to sit up and have good posture, but keep your notebook and your pen handy, because you can jot things down as they come. Normally we say wait until later, but because this is a fairly detailed thing, feel free to jot some things down, and then at the end I will allow a few minutes for you to go back and fill in if you have more things you want to write about. Oh, I jotted down a note so I wouldn't forget that, but now I'd like to write a little more about that. Okay? All right, so first we're going to just sit. Notice if there's any residual kind of jitteriness or revving in your body. Often that happens when we engage as we have just been doing. So allow yourself to settle and just be here in the space. And Reeve, when you're ready, will you lead a discussion about this?
Okay. Well, I'm eager to hear what people have to say about any of their feelings, impressions, things they've written down about being in these different aspects of communication. So if somebody would like to say something about what it's like to be the speaker, or what that was, what you noticed, how it felt, that would be lovely.
Well, I found it interesting. Number one, I don't often am the person who's doing the speaking, so to speak, like the center of attention. I'm usually the one listening and helping and contributing a lot to the conversation, but the spotlight isn't always focused on me. So that was, I don't know, it was nice, but at the same time it provided me with a little anxiety.
It was uncomfortable for you? We are
general conversation with people. But since we were exploring a uncomfortable communication I had experienced, I wanted to be conscious to kind of like give it a flow so that the person who was listening, that there wasn't like leaving the bubble as to, well, what was she talking about? What was her point? And so that was the anxiety for me, is to make sure I was clear in my communication, trying to be concise and like have a flow so it did make some sense, so that my listener could say, oh, I know what she's talking about, and I can like paraphrase that a little bit more easier than my usual communication style.
That's a lot. Like a lot was happening. I don't know if anybody else has something they thought about while being the speaker. I know I found I started out trying to tell a story. And I thought, oh no, you're trying to entertain. So backtrack and then start again to get to, I don't know if you saw that, but to get to what I really wanted to talk about. But it was hard for me not to either, and I'm used to doing quite a bit of speaking of one kind or another, and so, here I am starting to tell a story. I said, no. So that was a little funny. And then I also felt, after a minute of that, I thought how wonderful it is to be sitting here saying something to two people who are here just to listen and witness. Boy, was that lovely. But there is a discomfort in the speaker-ness of that job. I think that's a little bit, maybe for many of us, a little uncomfortable, because we're not so used to just speaking to be heard about something that you're concerned with. I have a lot of instances of speaking for other reasons, but just to be heard about some little thing that's troubling me about communication. That's an issue.
Yeah, I found it was the hardest of the three roles for me. Part of it, even though it had been something a while back, I could feel the body sensations, the feelings of of something that happened a while back, but those feelings just kind of went, and then I didn't feel like I was really able to communicate that well to paint the picture that was in my mind. I mean, knowing all the details, and I got kind of felt a little kind of befuddled. I don't know if it came off that way, but I was surprised at the amount of body of the emotions that I felt. And then I was thinking, okay, Carol's been trying to tell us that's part of, we need to begin to manage those emotions a little.
Yeah, no, that's great noticing. I mean, really to actually be on the spot as the speaker and be aware of how your body is responding, that's very, very, very useful skill to have.
Then the skill of how to manage that in the moment too.
Right.
It's a challenge, I think.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and part of it I thought was the role. I mean, we're told to, we are the spotlight as the speaker, so to speak. And it felt very self-revelatory, very sort of almost confessional. To say, and I see people nodding, somebody else felt that way too. Like, whoa, this is open, this could be anything. I mean, it sort of felt like a big responsibility, you might say. You know what I mean? But I was very, I don't know if we're supposed to be talking about this, but, on the nonverbal level, I felt very sort of supported by the feedback that I was getting, the nonverbal feedback I was getting from the people who were listening, and that was very good.
It's very bad.
Yeah, I mean, I found myself sort of wishing that we could always have structured conversations like this, instead of just like the regular messy old conversations we always have.
Oh, that's great.
I don't know the hardest thing. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I just saw your pencil on. I thought, is she going to speak or is that?
Was being a witness, because I didn't know what, you're a speaker, you're speaking. you're listening, you're listening. But witness, I couldn't find where the pathway was into how to be engaged in any way. I felt left out in a way, and yet I was supposed to be there and have some role of importance. But I didn't get the memo, I guess.
I love the way you are so willing to just share what your experience is.
Well, most of it is so I can hear it.
Well, that's good too. Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah.
Well, as a speaker, I felt, I told my story, and the feedback I got opened up for me a better understanding of what actually happened in these incidents. It was like, I'm not happy with myself for not, there's a Facebook thing, for not getting off Facebook. And I should have done that instead of engaging in this stupid situation. So the feedback I got just kind of gave me a bit of a revelation.
I want to say, Mary Liz, I loved being a witness. I loved it. I felt off the hook, but really sympathetic, and I got to watch these two people engaging, I thought, wonderfully in communication and courteously addressing each other about speaking and listening. And, I love the speaker and the listener, but I got to be the witness, so I didn't have to do anything except
I like that feeling your things there, Reed.
So that's just the way it was for me. I like that a lot.
I found the distinction of being the witness is paying attention to the process as opposed to the content.
That's it. All right. That's it.
We need to
You need to listen.
That's a very good distinction, and I think I may use that the next time I do this exercise in terms of giving a little bit more guidance for the witness, because there is a difference between the content, which the listener is really listening for, and the process of what's going on between these two people. And yeah, good.
I found that part a little bit overwhelming because I had to, you seem to be very relaxed and feel off the hook almost.
I did.
Yeah, but I felt it was almost the opposite. Like, I have to listen to both these people. I have to remember what they said. I have to comment on the way they interact. It would just seem a bit much.
I was more with Reeve. I felt it was more of an impartial, and I like how you said it was more of an impartial role that you could just be kind of, you're looking at both.
And the listener was thinking, okay, am I going to remember this? Don't forget the part about
Yeah.
remember this. So there was a bit of sort of performance anxiety.
Can't say that, yes.
You keep bringing that performance thing up, and it really rings a bell with me. And I really enjoyed it. I was more relaxed in this than I think I've ever been with this kind of thing. And
this is an exercise that I have used before, variations on this theme. Sometimes we've done it. It's interesting what you said about, seeing something about the original situation that you were talking about, because I have seen when you can do this in a full day workshop so that you can take more than 3 minutes and 1 minute and 1 minute, people actually have amazing insights simply by this structure. It's like mindfulness practice. We pay attention to our breath. We don't pay attention to our breath because we want to spend our lives walking around paying attention to our breath. We pay attention to our breath so that we can tell the difference between when we're caught up in the thoughts and when we're simply present. When we do this kind of communication exercise, we don't do it, even though it might be more comfortable if we could structure our conversations a little bit more. We don't do it because we're planning to structure conversations in the world around us in our daily lives. But by taking each of these 3 roles, when you find yourself in conversation with people, just the same way as the mindfulness begins to spill over and you notice when you're present and when you're not, you'll notice when you're actually listening, or when you're rehearsing something that you're going to say, or when you're actually just witnessing, which sometimes, if you're in the position of watching 2 other people have a conversation that has a lot of juice behind it, you can remember what it's like to just be the witness and notice the process, see what's going on here with these folks. So I don't want to stop without just putting this one thing about, oh boy, you can tell we've been through a lot of classes here. I want to get to the one about communication, which is here somewhere. There we go. Mindful communication, the key to creating community. Learning to listen mindfully, that's a big part of it, as we've just been talking about. Stow your storyline. We all have a storyline, and generally in here you didn't have one. I mean, you had your thought about what challenging communication situation you were going to talk about. But with regard to being the listener or the witness, you had no idea what was going to come up, what the other people were going to talk about. You had to stop and drop into wakeful presence and actually just be here. You can do that anytime, even if you've got an agenda, even if you know that you want to come out of this meeting or this conversation with a certain result, you can still afford to stow your storyline and open up. You will have more productive communication if you learn how to do that. Because if you're not stowing your storyline, then what that means is that you're keeping your storyline in mind, which means that your mind is full, which means that there's no room for anything new to come in. Open ears and minds. See the patterns arise and let them go. The more you practice mindfulness, the more familiar you will become with your own patterns, and the easier it will be for you to see the patterns in people around you. And as you see those patterns arise, you can notice how the inclination to react to something someone says is there, and that you have a choice about whether you actually react in that way or not. Really listen, within and without, setting aside your reactions and judgments. Within and without means this is a way of, so the contemplation is a way of inviting insight. In communication, insight arises in an interesting way, because when people are genuine, which you were talking about, that genuineness, it's very easy to pay attention. When people are running their storyline, watch how your mind starts to go off, to the races, wherever it likes to go. That is a cue to you that the conversation is not actually on track. It's not being genuine. There's something not authentic happening. And as you become more and more open yourself, you will find skillful ways to say, "Excuse me, I'm sorry, my mind just wandered. What is it we're really trying to do here? What is it you're really trying to talk about?" You can bring the conversation back to something genuine without making the other person feel like they've done something wrong. It's, especially if you're willing to acknowledge, oh, my mind wandered. Yeah, well, you may know that your mind wanders when the other person is going blah, 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 but you don't have to say that. You can just take ownership of a wandering mind and invite the conversation to come back to something real. Does that make sense? Speak clearly and kindly, telling the truth and appreciating commonality. We all want to be listened to. We all want to connect. Every human being wants that. And so the more we recognize that, the more we can get out of our own way and get out of the way of the other people that we come in contact with, so that something real and authentic can take place in exchange between us. And that's what mindful communication, the key to creating community. Really, community happens anytime people feel a connection with one another. And that can happen, you know, traditionally it's happened in churches and service groups and educational organizations, but it can happen in something as simple as being in line at the grocery store, or dropping off your library book. It can be that simple. You stop and you actually connect. And when you ask someone how they're doing, notice if you're just doing it in a rote way, or if you actually are looking at that person and would like to know how they're doing. And sometimes you don't have time to stop and hear a whole story, and you will begin to be able to tell which people you should ask genuinely and which ones you might need to wait until you have a little more time. But learning to notice the cues that arise within ourselves in these situations makes it possible for us to be more skillful in dealing with the people around us, the world around us. Makes it possible for us to be catalysts for community, which this world really needs. So I think we are out of time, and I really would like to thank you all for coming.